meeting is duly advertised in the South Jersey Times and Sentinel. The municipal clerk of the township has been duly notified of the requirements of posting notices have been met. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Bellis? Here. Sally? Cunningham? Here. Doherty? Here. Grosso? Here. Keane? Trace? Graham?
Here. All right, first item on the evening is swearing of Bellis. Great.
Sorry to say that. Sure. Do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same and to the governments established in the United States and this state under the authority of the people.
So help me God.
I do solemnly swear that I possess the qualifications prescribed by law for the office of member of the Board of Education, that I am not disqualified as a voter pursuant to RS 19:4-1, nor disqualified due to conviction of a crime or offense listed in NJS 18A:12-1,
More disqualified for the conviction of a crime or offense listed in NJ 18A:12-1.
and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform
That I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform
all the duties of that office according to the best of my ability.
all of the duties of that office according to the best of my abilities, so help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Moving on to presentations and recognition. We have our annual 2022 recognition. School board's recognition. Unless somebody wants to make a thing. Subscribe to that. That's how great you are, board members. So with that, I think recognition. All in favor? Anybody want to
I think you all do have a nice certificate right in front of you that should say, your name on there, recognition for your volunteers and your on the school board. So take it home, put it on the refrigerator, put a smiley face sticker on it, and we thank you.
We have our student performance report. I want to present that book. Yeah. I'll see you in the room.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody on the board, and good evening, everybody in our audience as well. So I do apologize because it's January and I'm giving you the data from our fall. So as soon as the kids came in, looking at our fall data, most of our winter data is in. We've been having our data reviews. Not everything is in Linkit yet for me to be able to pull out, but the data for the winter is done. It's just not included in this presentation as of yet. So just one quick thing. I know this picture is a little bit hard to see, but it's something that we've been focusing on with the staff this year and in our admin meetings to remind us what our students have been through for the last 18 months in the school year. So taking a look in the left side of that chart, a student that is currently in 6th grade, their last normal, quote unquote, normal school year where they were in school for a full day for an entire school year was in 3rd grade. And a student that's in 5th grade, it was 2nd grade, a 4th grade student was 1st grade, a 3rd grade student was kindergarten, and our kindergarten, 1st grade, and 2nd grade have never had a normal school year. So I just ask that while we're going over this data that you keep that in mind, because you will notice that we have more kids that need support, and we have more kids that are in the emergency range in all of our student data across the board. So in the beginning of the school year when the kids came in for language arts, all of the students got the Dibbles assessment for reading, as well as starting in 2nd grade, the quick spelling assessment, and then iReady. And in math, starting in 1st grade right away, all of the students were given the math interview in grades K through 1, so that's a one-on-one assessment that the math teachers sit down with the student. They have certain problems that they have to solve, and the teacher is assessing the mental math strategies that they're using to solve the problems. Math reasoning inventory is what is given in 5th and 6th grade. The students are then being asked to take what they've learned, K through 4, and apply those math strategies to higher numbers, also decimals and fractions. And they also take the iReady assessment. So once the universal screeners are given, we have a data review. We sit down and we look at every student's data, and we look to see if there's do we need more information to be able to know exactly where our students need their interventions. So if needed, if a student needs a phonological awareness assessment, we give that in grades 1 and 2. Once we assess the kindergartners, that's also one of the assessments that we give them. They receive a quick phonics assessment in grades 1 through 6 based off of the data. And then the math interview, they're given a full math interview or a leveled math reasoning inventory depending on their grade level. So the first thing we're going to go through is we're going to start with language arts, and the 2 main assessments we're going to take a look at is Dibbles and iReady. So we're going to start with Dibbles. Just taking a look, we did not give the full Dibbles assessment in 2020. So the data that I'm showing you compares this fall to 2019 when we gave the entire assessment and there was a composite score. So in 2020, there was no composite score. We just gave certain subtests of that assessment. So you can see for kindergarten, the percentage of students that are intensive, which is your red, did increase to 57%. In 1st grade, we went from 26% of the kids being intensive to 49% of the kids being intensive. In 2nd grade, 27% of the kids are intensive, and that increased to 43% of the students being intensive. One thing that we did notice when we dove into the data and looked at all of the subtests, phonemic awareness or phoneme segmentation part of the Dibbles is the key indicator for a student that would be struggling with reading as they move through the grade levels. Our number of students that are intensive in that category are decreasing, which is allowing our interventions to move into phonics much quicker than they have been in the past. So I know the overall score looks a little scary when you're looking at 50% of the 1st graders, being at the intensive range. But diving into the data, the things that we are doing with the students with our benchmark workshop phonics program and the interventions is working, and now we can start shifting that into the phonics much quicker. In 3rd through 6th grade, 5th and 6th grade, this is our first year of ever giving the full Dibbles assessment, so we don't have a baseline data, area of data for them. However, when you look at 3rd grade and 4th grade, you'll start to see, yes, there is an increase in the number of students that are intensive, but it's a lot smaller than what it is at the lower grades. We are actually able to start shifting our interventions over to comprehension and fluency versus phonics in 3rd and 4th grade. In 5th and 6th grade, I'm happy to announce that even though there is 28% and 32% of the students intensive, after digging into their data and looking at iReady, our interventions, we have minimal interventions at the phonics level, which is what we've been trying to do and accomplish for the last couple years. our interventions are moving more towards grade level focused skills, comprehension, and vocabulary. So moving into iReady reading, this is our district from 18-19 to the 2021 school year. So you can see that there definitely is an increase in the red, 2 grade levels below, 3 grade levels below. Our 1 grade level below percentage has relatively stayed the same, as well as the early on and mid grade level. You'll notice a little bit more green in the 2021 school year. Please keep in mind that we were in a hybrid situation and many of our students took the assessment at home, which skewed some of the data. And we had kindergarten students that tested on a 2nd and 3rd grade level. And you know, it's okay, they're home and they're struggling and parents are gonna help them. So just be mindful of that when we're looking at this information. This is each grade level. This is our school district compared to the national norm, as well as to the year to date. So that includes 6,775,000 diagnostic assessments that were given across the nation. And this compares us at each grade level to all of the other districts in the nation that are also giving the iReady. If you can see my dot where it says you, this is us. So unfortunately, my eye always goes to the red, and I always compare the red first and look at the green before I look at the green. But you can see that we're relatively performing just as everybody else is that takes the iReady assessment. I wanted to give you 5 years of iReady data because we have it in grades K through 4, and I thought it was really important to take a look at where were our students before the pandemic, where were they during the pandemic, and where are they this year. And I would love to say that this year has been a normal school year, but it has not, and it has probably been more difficult than last year, considering the number of staff that have been out, considering the number of students that have been out. So I don't look at this year as a post-pandemic year by any means. But taking a look at that data, you can see in kindergarten in 2020, there's a lot more green and yellow up there than any of the other years. And you'll start to see that red grow in 2nd grade. But being able to really dive into that data and take a look at it, we're really noticing in kindergarten and 1st grade, it's a phonics and frequency word issue, which makes complete sense when you think of they've never really been in school before. Some of them, even if they went to preschool, what kind of preschool were they able to attend? Was it virtual? Was it just a home preschool? So being able to look at that, they didn't really get that letter naming fluency, maybe learning their letters and their sounds. In 2nd grade, all of the subtest areas hover around 25% of our students being at 2 or more grade levels below, except for in phonics. There is an increase. There's about 37% of the kids that were intensive in phonics, which makes sense, considering they didn't have a normal school year in kindergarten or 1st grade. Moving into 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, you steady see that percentage of students that are 2 or more grade levels below increasing. However, it is the vocabulary and the informational text subtests that are driving that. It's no longer the phonics subtests of iReady, as it's been in years past. So I'm sorry for the board members that haven't been here, that haven't gotten to see the years prior to this, but our focus had always been on phonics, and now we're starting to see a shift in that. So this is the number of basic skills students that are in Tier 2 and Tier 3. In the gray, you'll see in 2020 in the fall how many students were in basic skills. And over here is 2021, and here is is it an increase or a decrease? Actually, in 1st grade, we're below by 4 students, but you'll notice a huge jump in 3rd and 4th grade. There's one reason for that. We had enough people available to help us provide interventions in 3rd and 4th grade, that we were able to be extra sensitive with the data and pick more kids up for fluency practice. So we separated them by who needs just fluency, who needs phonics, who needs comprehension, and we were able to bring more kids into services for 3rd and 4th grade. I can tell you for the winter, there's not that many kids as we expected. If we could hit them hard and at the very beginning of the school year, by the winter, we would be able to exit a lot of the students out of Tier 2 services. So just a couple things to keep in mind. The Dibbles composite score, I know the intensive range has increased, and this is going to be our baseline data for 5th and 6th grade. Phoneme segmentation fluency, the percentage of kids needing the intensive intervention has decreased, so we have been able to move into phonics much faster. The percentage of students scoring in the intensive range for nonsense word fluency has slightly increased in the lower grades, which makes sense. That increased because the phoneme segmentation decreased, so you're going to start to see that shift. And like I said, in grades 3 through 6, we've been able to provide interventions in oral reading fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension, and we're also able to use more of the iReady data when planning our interventions. The iReady data included 5 years, as I explained, in grades 3 through 6, even though the percentage of students below level has stayed the same, or in some cases increased, we're seeing that turnover, that our interventions are now starting to catch up with grade level skills. And the number of BSI, as I explained. I just wanted to make sure you guys had a reference to go back to when you're looking at the presentation. So to move into math, we're gonna look at the math interviews, number sense, the math interview, and iReady. So this again is iReady, and as you can see, there is an increase in the percentage of students that are 2 or grade levels below overall, looking at the last 4 years of our fall data. This is the same slide comparing us to all of the other districts in the state that also take the iReady assessment, and this one includes 7.7 million diagnostics. And again, it's relatively on par with everybody else. Here, looking at iReady, again, you kind of see the same thing happening. Once you hit 1st and 2nd grade, you're starting to see more kids in that 2 or grade levels below. They cannot be 2 or more grade levels below in kindergarten, so you'll never see it. They can only be the one grade level below in kindergarten. But a slight increase in 2nd grade. The shift that we're seeing is geometry and measurement and data being our area of weakness, because the last 18 months when we had to go through the curriculum and we had to target and prioritize standards, those were not some of the standards that got prioritized. So the standards in numbers and operations and algebraic thinking were prioritized over geometry and measurement and data. So the data is consistent with exactly that. We're seeing increases in our algebraic thinking and number sense, and decreases, or when I say decreases, more kids are intensive or emergency in the areas of measurement and data and geometry. And it goes across the board into 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th grade as well. Looking at the math interview, I started with 1st grade because kindergarten doesn't get it until November. But in 1st grade, you can even see the students did better this year than they did the year prior at 76 being on or above level. Last year, there was 74. In 2nd grade, there was a big jump. 65% of our kids were on level compared to last year was only 38. So definitely seeing some gains in the strategies that the students are using for number sense. In 3rd grade, they take the math interview, but now it's with multi-digit numbers. So you can definitely see an increase here of 74% of our kids being on or above level versus 65. And then we also gave that same assessment to 4th grade. We typically wouldn't. We typically would give them the multiplication assessment and that's it. but because of the last 2 years and how school has been, we wanted to see where they were with multi-digit numbers before we moved into multiplication. So we gave them both. So fourth grade over here, there's a slight increase in the number of kids, went from 54% to 60%. And then in multiplication, which we were shocked, honestly, because, you know, look at last year in the hybrid situation, and third grade is a critical year to learn multiplication. And 68% of the kids scored on or above level versus the year before at 58% of the kids. Now at Ritter, fifth grade, this is where that interview switches over to the math reasoning inventory. This assessment is much more difficult because now they're synthesizing all of the information that they have learned and all of the strategies and applying them to higher numbers. Not only higher numbers, but fractions and decimals as well. So in fifth grade, you can see our students, there's quite a bit of red, but we still did better. 35% of the kids versus 28 the year before for whole numbers being on or above level. And there was a decrease in the number of students that were emergency. A slight decrease in sixth grade when we're looking at whole numbers, fractions, and decimals. But definitely more kids being on level than being in that at-risk stage as well. Here's the number of basic skills students. This was 2020 in the fall. This was 2021. And you'll see here every grade level increased with the number of basic skills students, but there wasn't a huge increase. I can tell you in fourth and fifth grade, the reason why there is an increase is because we have implemented a math intervention room. And I'm sure the new board members don't know what I'm talking about, but I know I've talked about it before prior to this meeting, the math intervention room where we are putting tier 2 and tier 3 students together and separate, if you will. And we were able to identify more students because we have a whole class designated for intervention. I won't read this to you because it'll reiterate everything I already said. But just again, this slide is here so you can go back to it for your reference where our shift has occurred, the shift that has occurred in iReady Math is from numbers and operations and algebraic thinking, used to be our area of concern, that is shifted over to geometry, measurement, and data. Just the difference between the math interview and the math reasoning inventory there, in case you need that for reference, the number of basic skills students and why that has increased in fourth and fifth grade. Yeah, even in first grade, I know that there was an increase of 14 students that needed basic skills for math, but when you look at the total number, it really is relatively low compared to what we expected to see this school year. However, to give you an update, given all of the circumstances and everything that I've asked you to keep in mind, the district goal that you guys approved, we knew that it was going to be extremely difficult to attain. And to give you an update, so we said that 70% of the students in kindergarten through sixth grade will attain the following percentages of their annual stretch growth in ELA and math using the iReady. So we tiered the students, and here, the students in tier 1, each grade level needed to meet 34% of the kids at each grade level needed to meet their stretch growth. We have one grade that did that so far. Fifth grade, 47% of the kids that were in this tier 1 met 34% of their stretch growth. You will notice for the tier 2, nobody has met the goal of 27.5%, and in tier 3, nobody has met the goal of 22%. Right now, if we had to say what was our achievement of our goal, it's 0.05% of the students meeting their stretch growth. Down here, we don't have none of our grade levels have met, and this is for math, and so we are relatively at 0% of our students meeting their stretch growth. Now, we know that the mid-year diagnostic doesn't show a lot of growth from fall to winter. we are going to see the growth from fall to spring. But Mr. Walton and I talked, we brought Mr. Slavin into the conversation as well, and we wanted to be able to provide you with an update as it stands right now. Start strong. So I'm sure all of you are aware that our students in grades 4, 5, and 6 had to take a state assessment this fall called the Start Strong Assessment. The students were assessed on standards from their prior grade level. When we got the data, it gave us three, I call them buckets. Students put in three categories, some that would need less support, some that would need some support, and some that would need strong support. By the time we got this data, we were done with our universal screeners and our diagnostics, and we were already moving in and knew exactly who was getting their interventions and what we needed to do. However, you can see this is for language arts, that when you go grade 4, 5, and 6, and then as a whole, we're almost split into thirds between all three areas of needing support. And then here, this slide has the race, gender, and their program. So whether it's free and reduced lunch, 504, special ed, ESL, and general ed, the females and the males performed relatively the same, which we've historically seen that on our state assessments. Up here, by achievement level, this is by race here, and then our free and reduced lunch, our ESL students. I don't think any of this data was a surprise to any of us, to be honest with you. This is the math data, so you can see there's definitely more of an increase in 4th, 5th, and 6th grade of the students needing that strong support in mathematics. And historically in the past, when we've been able to dig into our state testing data, we have noticed that our students struggle more with conceptual mathematics than procedural mathematics. So that is something that we'll definitely take a look at, but it kind of goes in line with all the other data that I already showed you in terms of their iReady and what we were seeing at those grade levels. This will give you the same information. Up here is by race, female to male, relatively the same, and then by their program. ESL, of course, which makes sense, being the highest here, free and reduced lunch, 504, special ed, and our gen ed population. The 6th grade students had to take science because typically in the spring it's our 5th grade students that take the science assessment. So there was definitely a significant number of students that fell in that strong support category. And again, this is by the race up here, your male and female, and the program. I'm done. Do you guys have any questions for me? Taylor.
You mentioned teaching about how we're feeling. I know the curriculum committee worked really hard trying to get the resources that we needed in the curriculum that they felt were best. And that kind of fell apart during the pandemic a little bit. But how do you have any information on that?
I feel like everybody is doing the best they can right now, and we have so many teachers that are maybe not teaching things that they're used to teaching because they're covering a lot of classes. So they have the resources, they have what they need. It's just such a different type of year that we're seeing more of them being worried about their SGO and students making growth because of the number of absences. And you know, when classroom teachers are out for an extended period of time, our BSI teachers and our related arts teachers get pulled, and that takes services away from those kids that need it. And that's no fault of anybody. That's no fault of anybody. Right now, it's all hands on deck. The instructional coaches are covering classes. I've offered to the principal, if you need to cover a class, let me know. So I think the resources are definitely there. And what we're seeing with our interventions, with our shifts, we've been relying a little bit more on iReady because they give us exactly where the kids are, and then here's lessons that we can do with them according to what they need. So thank you. Anybody else? I didn't do it.
Okay, so basically, I'm going to review
what's the, is it just because Dibbles is focusing more on phonics and admitting so they're better in that area and not in the actual application of reading skills?
Yes.
Reading stuff.
Yes.
I agree that that's.
Yep, you're gonna see all the standards in my writing, across the board, to vocabulary, comprehension, for informational.
And with that, so looking at the tiers, so for example, first graders, third grade students that are in tier 2 and 3, which is 25% of our population, yet we have 84% non-ready that are considered unread.
Yes.
So what are we doing for the other 60% that are still grade level and more below?
So we're looking at them right now for students like intermediation rather than intervention. And our coaches and the music skills teachers meet with the classroom teachers before or after the year. So like after the assessments are given, and they're having conversations about what they're seeing and what they can do in a small group with them. After the data review, then they'll go back and talk to them and say, okay, hey, we couldn't pick this one up for intervention, but here are some things that you can do. If a classroom teacher needs more support, like INRS, for example, instead of sending them to INRS, they go to the instructional coach, and the instructional coach will do a tier 1 plan with them and track their growth. And then sometimes, if they're not growing, the coaches will come to me and say, this student really needs to be in tier 2 or tier 3, and take a look at that information and their growth or not of growth, and make that determination.
And I guess my question is very similar to Taylor's in that we're obviously in budget season. What do you need, what do the teachers need from the district to help these students? Because obviously we have a large amount of students in this obviously across the board in many districts, but talking about us and what Franklin will need, right? Is it staff? I mean, I know it's hard at this point to get teachers, but that doesn't mean that we can't try and come up with positions that if it's necessary. What do you as administration feel, and the teachers, and I don't know, we've had this conversation, I don't know how, they've just been ordering up or whatever, but what do you need from the district to really get these kids, all of these kids, without doing that?
Yeah, and Barb and I were just talking about this the other day too, because all of our special ed teachers and our music skills teachers have a building camp training this summer, and they are finding a lot of success with the students, the ones that are following that. And we had a couple classroom teachers do the training that they were involved in. And all of the teachers are saying that are using the learning and how much it is beneficial and how much it's working for them. So we were talking about seeing if we could get more teachers to go through the actual training where we were certified rather than just a week-long training where you can teach it. But we didn't purchase the program. We purchased components of it, and our interventionists are using like the 3 parts of the lesson and things like that with them. But I think right now what we're looking at is what parts of what we're doing is really thinking and what else we need to bring in, because it's really good for K1 and 2 and 3. So now it's more looking at that 4, 5, and 6. And we did that, the training for that where it's more about vocabulary and comprehension. But I feel like we're missing something in the upper grades to really target the needs of what the ELS need right now. Because we're seeing a shift. Like we plan for all this phonics, but now we're not seeing that the 5th and 6th grade students need that, which is wonderful. But now we're like, okay, we did this, so where do we need to go next? We're here. We find that the benchmark workshop is working. So you'll see in the budget that K1 and 2, their 3-year subscription is up. So I put in for a 1 more year for them. So then that way they'll be on the same schedule as 3rd and 4th grade, and we can make decisions about what we want to do the following year for K for 4.
No, and I get how one program
Right.
we need supplement in ways that are uniform, right? The same thing for math. When you see that maybe we need for math is
Yes, I turned back here because this is very there. She's one of our intervention teachers. She's doing the first intervention room in 4th grade that we've never had before and seeing great success. So right now we have a math intervention in 4th grade, 5th grade, and 6th grade. And my goal is to bring that down to 3rd grade and 2nd grade. Space is going to be an issue because I feel like we were classrooms, right? The principals are shaking their head because I come to them with these ideas and I want to put a ELA intervention room in like we're doing for now because we're seeing such growth in the students with their foundational math skills. I feel like we kind of flipped where we were for reading for so long, we were at that foundational level and we're starting to build that up. And for math, we're at that foundational level where we're not going to see the gains in our reading quite yet. But we're seeing the gains in the strategies that they're using and the strategies that they're applying to, and taking the mathematical abstract concepts and bringing them down to concrete and working through the concrete stage, the tutorial stage, and abstract stage is much more successful than what we need. And they're making more connections. So I feel like we have the staff, we just don't necessarily have the space.
Is there an item, like, I believe summer, summer's expanded, which is great.
Yes.
You know, I don't know, you have to do things out of the box, I guess.
Yeah.
Or school, after school, I don't know.
So we did, our first tutoring round was the beginning of November to the middle of December. We did before and after school tutoring. We only had enough teachers to be able to like 2 or 3 students for ELA and math. We're getting ready to start our second round of tutoring on Valentine's Day. So February 14th, and the second round will run through April 13th. So I just got all of the teachers to fill out a survey who's interested. Unfortunately, again, I feel like I can only invite the tier 3 students because there's so many kids in tier 2 and tier 3 that if I invite both tiers, they're going to have a whole classroom of 20, 25 students for tutoring, which takes away the effectiveness. Right. So I did say, depending on the school, depending on the grade, how many tutors we have, we may have to get really strategic about if there are tier 2 students that are on the cusp of becoming tier 3 students, that we invite them to the tutoring as well. So when we're doing our data reviews and trying to figure out, does a student need to move tiers, or do we need to refer them to the child study team? Some of the things that tipped that over was they came to tutoring 4 days a week and they're still not making the growth that we would expect them to make. But thank you for that question because I appreciate that. I'm sure the teachers behind me and the teachers that are not here appreciate that as well. You asking what is it that we need?
Yeah, what you're talking about, they were wrong.
Yeah.
It's going to be different, more.
But I feel like our teachers are being very strategic, in what they're asking for.
I mean, I don't think that,
No. I'm just saying, it's like thinking outside of the box and saying, okay, what can we do? What else can we do? You know, now having summer school being an open enrollment is a game changer. And like I said, with the tutoring, I would definitely love to be able to invite all of the students that need that support. So, we'll get there.
Any questions?
What grade is the tutoring for? Is it in all the schools right now?
Yes, it'll be in all schools. Yep. It was 1st through 6th grade for round 1, and now we'll bring in the kindergarten.
And that tutoring started for
Tier 3 students. Anything else?
thank you.
You're welcome. I'll leave this up for now and just take it down when you guys go to executive.
Yeah, if anybody wants the slides,
Yeah, we'll get them up on the
That's
website.
on the agenda.
all right, we're going to have our first public portion for agenda item 70. You mentioned that to the public, but second. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Sorry, anyone from the public would like to make comments at this time? Seeing no one, I ask that you close the first public portion for that second. All in favor? All right, we do have a necessity this evening for executive right, I make a motion, we come out of our executive session at 8:24. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstentions? All right, moving on with our agenda. The next item is a nomination for an appointment to fill the board vacancy. So at this time, I'll make a motion to open the floor for nominations for the board vacancy. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? Mr. Borelli, I guess the floor is open at this time, correct?
I'd like to make a nomination.
If anyone would like to make a nomination to fill the board vacancy.
I'd like to make a nomination for Michelle Doyle.
Second.
All right, we have a nomination for Mrs. Doyle in a second. Are there any other nominations at this time? Hearing none, I make a motion to close the floor for nominations for the board vacancy. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right. Any questions or comments? If not, I guess call the roll on that, correct, Trish?
Yes. Bellis?
Yes.
Cunningham?
Yes.
Doherty?
Yes.
Fregoso?
Yes.
Dean?
Yes.
Trace?
Yes.
Bray?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Congratulations, Mrs. Doyle. Also would like to thank the other candidates for interviewing this evening. I think we all can agree, if we had 3 more seats, we'd love to appoint all 4 of you. Unfortunately, we don't. But I hope you all stay involved and consider running in the coming election. So, any other comments from any board members on that topic? No? If not, we will move on. I have my school board president report, which I don't have anything specific to report this evening. NJSBA representative, Ms. Caselli, she's actually absent this evening with COVID, so wish her the best. I spoke to her today and she was doing fine. However, she did test positive on Sunday, so she didn't want to risk coming out this evening for everyone's safety. Moving on to approval of minutes. We have the minutes from our 12-13 regular board meeting, as well as our minutes from our 1-5 reorganization. Just caution our new members, they may want to abstain from any meetings they didn't attend. So at this time, I make a motion to approve the minutes as listed. Do I have a second?
Second.
Are there any questions or corrections to the minutes? If not, all in favor? Any abstentions? Chris, you abstained from the minutes?
From the meetings you weren't at. So just say that you abstained.
Abstained.
Thank you.
Ms. Doherty, I'm assuming you abstained from 12?
Well, that was
13.
my question, like, was I seated before? I don't think I was seated.
No,
So I have to abstain.
correct.
Yes. From 12-13.
From 12-13, but you were here on the,
I was, yeah,
the
yeah.
15th.
I abstained from January 5th.
Terry, well, I just wanted to make a comment. Terry Lewis, we did ask this question one time, and she said even if you don't attend, you can go over everything, do the meeting and the agenda just to have the unanimous approval or anything like that. However, if you weren't on the board, you definitely can't. But you know, that was her statement to it. So definitely, if you ever need to reach out to her, and that's what she says.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely correct. Is that correct, Mike? As
No,
long
I
as
did, yeah.
someone reviews the meeting.
If you're able to thoroughly review it.
Right.
Yes.
Not sure why anybody would actually want to put
There's
themselves
not a
through that, but yeah, you
If you
can.
would like to remove your abstain, given that information, obviously it's still applicable for Chrissy and Barbara.
I would like to remove my abstention.
Motion carries, minutes are passed. Thank you.
Okay. A lesson on minutes. Next item on our agenda is our human resources items. Are there any questions or comments?
Well, we reviewed all of the items in the back with the exception of I-9, which was a policy for reading. You want to take a look at that. excuse me, the policy committee determined at our, it was our November meeting, I guess, that there was an outdated policy when we were reviewing the school day policy. So this was updated, just identifying the considered essential employee for maintaining district operations on inclement weather days. Really the review there was that the inclement weather days are still work days for 12 employees. Then I would make the determination of whether the quote-unquote non-essential employees would be in person or working virtually those days. And then we updated that rather than they let us know by 6 a.m. they have to enter the day off in the system as we have done with the other policies. Really just a cleanup.
Any questions from anybody? If not, I make a motion to approve human resources items I-1 through I-12 as recommended by the superintendent. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any comments? If not, if you could call the roll, please, Trish.
Cunningham?
Yes.
Doherty?
Yes.
Fregoso?
Yes.
Dean?
Yes.
Trace?
Yes.
Bellis?
Yes.
Brant?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, moving on to education items.
Yes, there's only 2 items, J2, J3. J2, we have a school-wide student-driven book donation. Remember, we did this activity last year with the 2nd grade. We collect gently used books, and will be donated to Credits to Crowns. And then we have a few out-of-district workshops to approve. That's really it for education.
Anyone have any questions? If not, I make a motion to approve education items J1 through J6 as recommended. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any other comments or questions? If not, if you call the roll, please, Trish.
Fregoso?
Yes.
Dean?
Yes.
Trace?
Yes.
Bellis?
Yes.
Cunningham?
Yes.
Doherty?
Yes.
Brant?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. General administration.
General admin stuff, all normal monthly stuff, enrollment, attendance, discipline tables there. We discussed the bibs in the back. Emergency drills, and again, all monthly, normal monthly stuff, our COVID information. That's on our tracker. That's it.
Any questions? If not, I make a motion to approve general administration items K1 through K7. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any other questions or comments? If not, please call the roll, Trish.
Bellis?
Yes.
Costello? Sorry. Cunningham?
Yes.
Doherty?
Yes.
Fregoso?
Yes.
Dean?
Yes.
Trace?
Yes.
Brant?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. Operations.
Operations is also slightly light. Typically, item number 1, claims and payroll are as normal. Does anybody need time to go over the bill lists or have any questions on the bill list? Seeing none, I'll move on. Item 2 is the budget transfers for the month of November 2021. Item 3 is the budget over expenditure certification for secretary report and cash reports for the month of November 2021. Item 4 is also for the month of November 2021. Cafeteria report for the month of November 2021. Item 6, we have 1 out-of-district student placement as listed. 7 is none, 8 is none. Item number 9 is the transportation contract as listed. Scrolling through down to number 14, as the others are none. Get the revised meeting dates as discussed in the update. Item 15, Wilson Supplemental Services as listed. Item 16 is the carryover and amendment for the IDEA grant for basic and preschool funds. That is all of operations. Questions on anything?
If not, I make a motion to approve operations committee items L1 through L16 as recommended. Do I have a second?
Second.
Anyone have any comments or questions? If not, if you can call the roll, please. Sure.
Keen,
Yes.
Trace,
Yes.
Bellis,
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes, but abstain from L15.
noted. Doherty,
Yes.
Fregoso,
Yes, but I need to abstain from the IT share services from Nelson. Even though that's one and two.
and Branch.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, moving on to old business. Anyone have any old business? Michelle, I know you always have everything, so go ahead.
Yeah, I just, well, especially with now that we pretty much have solidified the board, and we were trying last year to get a board retreat, come up with board goals, we don't have any goals. So I was hoping that we might be able to start pursuing that again this year. See if there's a possibility for us to come up with goals for the board.
Okay. Is that something you want to put together?
Well, isn't that usually our NJSBA in person?
I was going to suggest that, but she wasn't here this evening, so.
Well, we got her.
Sure. So, you want information from NJSBA as far as setting up a board retreat?
Yeah, to see when there might be availability.
Okay. I know you mentioned you weren't happy with them, so I wasn't sure if you wanted to use them or.
Well, I think when we looked, we determined that it was costly if we wanted to get around.
I don't know what other options are available besides school boards. I mean, there's no other associations, is there, Troy? We kind of got the only game in town. So. But yeah, we can look into that. Any other old business? Anyone? I have some old business regarding some discussions that we've had over the past several months regarding remote meeting attendance. It came to fruition this evening. Mrs. Caselli had reached out to me to make me aware that she was ill and to explore the opportunity of her attendance virtually. I spoke to Trish about it, and it came to our attention that we don't have a policy regarding virtual attendance by individual members. So with that, I'd like the policy committee to review, I believe it's policy, I don't remember the number. Do you remember the number, Trish? They have a policy, it's 90.
There is a policy, but number,
No, it's a separate policy
No,
that we don't have regarding, they'll give us a baseline for that moving forward so that we have something in place to reference if these situations continue to arise. So if it's possible that policy can make it do that and maybe report to us on our February meeting, I'd appreciate that.
I mean, here's the fly in the ointment. We don't have a
There's
policy
that policy
committee
committee meeting.
scheduled, and I haven't received the Strauss estimate alert, so we've done the work with our wellness check. So at this point, it's scheduled on an as-needed basis. Again, I haven't received the Strauss estimate alert for us to review anything.
Well, let me ask the policy committee, you prefer to review it on a committee level and report back, or should we just move it to a full board discussion in February?
Well, I don't know if you want my opinion. I mean, it's just, I would think it would need to be a full board discussion of whether it goes to review. Meaning, how does people feel about that?
About what?
About actually reviewing a policy. I mean, are members in favor of reviewing a policy, or are they not? Like that, I think we got to start square one. And that's, again, up to you guys, but I'm just procedurally.
Is there a state policy on this at all? Is there a state policy on this at all?
School boards has a policy. I do believe Strauss Esme may have a sample policy. So there's policies out there, sure.
Yeah, Trish actually sent me the policy, the draft policy, not draft, but format policy today. So I think regardless, we need to have a policy one way or the other to avoid a situation like this where something comes up and we don't have a policy. So
So would this be for any time in 5 years from now, and COVID, like COVID, no COVID, if I have the flu, if I have strep throat, if I don't have a babysitter, I can come virtual, like is this?
well, that's
or
part
is this-
that's part of the policy that we would be discussing.
Okay.
So the policy would outline those type of situations, so we're not sitting here guessing as to what's permitted or what's not. So does anyone object to looking at the policy? Okay.
I don't think it's necessary.
Yeah, I mean, I'll look at it, but I don't really like the personal. I'll look at it.
So you'd rather every board at every meeting, depending on the attendance, vote on whether or not they're going to permit it?
I mean, we've done that forever and ever and ever and ever for board meetings in person.
I think we've also done virtual though.
No. What I'm saying is, right now, there's no policy in place. So depending on who's sitting here, you could change that at every meeting. You'll prefer that to having a policy?
If I could just clarify, I think the terms are being mixed up. The policy that he had referenced was for a remote or virtual meeting during a pandemic and or emergency. The policy that we were recommending to put in place or just found as the draft was for board members to attend meetings via electronic devices, whether it be a speakerphone, or Google Meet or Zoom, something to that effect, but more so just either with an audio device to be able to attend. So there is a difference. Virtual meetings and remote meetings would have to be advertised and accessible to the public as well. This portion would just be applicable to the board member themselves and the way the board wishes to allow them to attend.
Right
Yes.
now you have no policy on it at all, so you can't allow somebody to participate by phone. So I guess the question Troy was saying is, do you want to even consider opening the door to allowing people to not show up personally? If you do, then take a look at the policy. If you don't, then you stick with the fact that people have to show up for meetings.
So, sorry if I wasn't clear on what the policy was I was referring to. So, is there a desire to review the policy? Does anyone object to reviewing the policy?
I mean, I don't have a desire, so.
So you object to review?
If that's what the majority of the board wants to do, then that's the policy to do.
Do we have, our discussion is to limit the use of this and be very specific about it?
Yeah,
If the existing policy doesn't say that, then I think we need to revisit, revise, whatever.
The problem is currently we don't have a policy, period.
Okay.
We have a policy that deals with virtual meetings during states of emergency.
Yeah.
We do not, it's commonplace. We'll take you back pre-pandemic. It was commonplace for members, not at this particular body, but members of governing bodies to have members attend via telephone. I've seen it done in many times, different governmental bodies, even some organizations that I've been part of. So the policy that I'm referencing, which came to fruition this evening because we had a board member that was out because of COVID that wished to participate in this evening's meeting. However, we do not have a policy specifically that outlines the procedure for that to occur. So that is the policy that I'm referencing.
I think we need to have a policy that would do that.
Okay. So I think there's a majority that agrees that we should review the policy, correct? So you want to make that a full board discussion, I guess, since the policy committee?
You guys tell me. I mean, we
Yeah.
can provide sample policies with the weekly update, and then for discussion at the next meeting. Is that a path?
Sure.
You guys let us know. We'll
Yeah, that's fine. Thanks.
write this up.
Anyone else have anything for old business? No. Anything for new business before we get into the budget update? Trish, I guess no one has anything, so if you want to go ahead.
As we typically do within budget season, which started back in the end of November. Just to give you a timeline of updates based on the budget calendar that was approved. Budget projection was made available to the administrators and supervisors on November 15th. Departmental budgets were submitted for review by December 18th of 2021. I provided summative reports to Mr. Walton and reviewed those with him the week of January 3rd. Myself, Mr. Walton, and Ms. Dolden met with the other administrators and supervisors and reviewed their submitted departmental budgets. Those meetings were held on January 18th and January 21st. And then this week, Mr. Walton and I will go through those and point, I'm giving you a verbal update that's scheduled for the January work session and our regular meeting. Key dates for this budget, Tuesday, February 22nd is the governor's address. That's the fourth Tuesday in February for statute every year. Thursday, February 24th, the state aid notices will be available just 2 days later, which again is per statute. So far, expenditure items covered within the budget. It's not copy and paste. Our budgets are typically a zero-based budget. Health insurance is a big ticket item. I do not have a renewal rate yet, as the SHIP, which we participated in, did not have a January meeting. Typically, their renewal rates are available in February, so I'll have more information to come. 11 teaching staff members will be eligible for family benefits in 22-23, and 3 support staff members will be eligible for family benefits in 22-23. It's about a $24,000 increase for the single to family benefit plans. So that total for contingency costs of the increase is about $336,000. Salaries, health benefits, and additional contractual required benefits total about 80% of the total budget. Transportation items are, of course, buses, 4 new 54 passenger buses, that totals about $500,000. 1 new special ed bus is about $100,000, and all of these are requested based on the replacement schedule. Within the repair and maintenance, we need a new on-site diesel fuel tank, as well as a gas tank for the buses. Quotes are being received for those. And also fire suppression system upgrades to addressable heads. Quotes are being received for those as well. The ESIP financing payment number 2 of 20 is due. That total is $135,000. To cover revenue items, as you know, we only increase taxes until up to 2%. That represents $226,000. Our current tax levy is $11,287,790. Basically, the questions that we would be posing to the board is, are we using 2%? Are we using less than 2%? We also have bank cap, as we have gone 0% increase for the past 3 years. We have a total of $651,000 in bank cap that's available to use within this budget. If we were to use all of that, that represents a 5.77% tax increase. We could anticipate a possible state aid decrease due to the S2 calculation, since that's based on the 5-year enrollment average. We have seen a decline in enrollment. Part of the revenue piece is new field tuition. That's still in the calculation process, so I don't have those numbers. Also, debt service will cost about $197,000, and that typically, in most budgets, is passed on to the community to be paid in a separate portion of taxes. However, the district has been able to cover that from capital reserve funds to date. It's typical at this point in the budget process that expenditures are greater than revenues, and I can account that is the case right now. Pretty much we're still in planning and waiting for those figures to come out from the state and other portions. Any questions as of now? I know that's a lot for verbal talk. I can include this in the weekly update.
Trish, you know my position on the budget, right?
10%?
10% discount? Yeah.
Noted. So noted. On the other side, it's not verbal budget update portion, but the personal financial disclosure forms will go out to you via email tonight with those instructions that you have to fill out. If you have any questions, I know the process is slightly confusing. It's not as easy as it was. Let me know.
Please fill it out.
I mess it up every year. So now I sit with Chris one-on-one.
Any questions about the budget?
I didn't have a question, Troy, but would it be possible for us to get an idea, after looking at, obviously the data that we saw tonight, to get an idea of what specifically the district's going to do in terms of the budget? What funds are we going to additionally allocate, or are we going to have additional staff that we're
Yeah, again, they're preliminary conversations,
Yeah.
and when I sat down with each of the supervisors, we have wish lists, we have, hey, this might work, that might work, but, at the end of the day, it comes down to the dollars. So, yes, I mean, your answer to your question is yes, right now, that'll be preliminary.
Okay.
Okay?
And the other thing I was wanting to see if, I don't know the rest of the board members, but if not, obviously not now, but maybe for next month, if we could get an idea of, especially with having new board members, the total amount of ESSR funds we've gotten, what we spent and on what, and what we have left.
Yeah, that's an easy one, sure.
Michelle, it reminded me, the last meeting that I asked for that COVID data. Did you want to discuss that at all or make any proposals regarding the quarantining?
Well, I mean, obviously from the data that we got, the contact tracing that we are doing is probably not a procedure or policy that we implement and follow because it's not working in terms of the fact that the percentage of people that are actually testing positive, but yet not being allowed to be in school is very low. So, in any other aspect, I don't know of any board that would follow something where the percentages were so low in terms of the positive, of making a difference. Obviously, the CDC gives us guidelines and gives us recommendations. But I think it's a conversation that we should have as a board as to what we feel. I mean, that's not even counting the amount of time that staff is being utilized to do this contact tracing, to outreach to parents, to not be in school, for children to not be in school. I just feel like in any other subject, in any other place, we would not institute a policy or follow a policy like this because it's not doing what it's intended to do. So that's why I requested that.
So, do you think we should discontinue the contact tracing at this point?
Yes.
Are you making that a motion or?
I don't know how anybody else feels about it, but I feel like it's a large burden on our district that's not providing for what we're putting into it. We're not reaping the benefits of the procedures.
Yeah, I agree with you.
There's another district, at least one that I know of, that has done the same thing. That has up in central New Jersey, that has decided to not follow recommendations and to stop contact.
So, do you want me to make a motion or would you like to?
Well, I mean, I think it's, I would like to get Troy's input because it's the administration who
Yeah,
it does this on a daily, and the nurses understand, the nurses too, obviously, but
absolutely.
you're dealing with this day in and day out.
Sure, so hopefully you had the opportunity to look at that data, hopefully it was helpful. Hopefully it gave you a picture of how we're logging that data in that spreadsheet. So long story short, your statements are correct. It's draining, it really is, it drains our resources. The reality of it, and I had told Jason this, when we went down to the 5 days of quarantine, when a student or staff really test positive, there's always a 2, 3, 4 day lag time anyway in regards to getting the results. So when the nurses are notified that, little Johnny tested positive, well, by the time they look at, the back time, that child who may have been deemed a close contact, they're already 3, 4 days into that 5 day quarantine. So with the recommendation coming out of shrinking that 5 days, it's certainly shrinking the amount of time the kids are actually spending out of school. Now, the flip side of that, I don't know that it reduces the amount of time, because I do believe we have a responsibility to let the parent know that their child may be sitting at a lunch table with a child that tested positive. Whether that parent wants to keep the child home for the 5, 10, what have you, that's their decision. And ultimately, we would need to know that to help to live stream from an instructional standpoint. So two sides to this. I think by lowering the quarantine time down to 5 days, I think it ultimately accomplished what you're asking it to accomplish. And, I mean, as the cases go down, like, you know how hard it was to get a PCR test 2 weeks ago. Maybe that lag time shrinks and then you do see the kids out of school, 3 days, 4 days of the 5. But, to think it's going to be a full 5, it's just not. Again, we don't get that data real time, So, really the pleasure of the board. I mean, I think it's already accomplishing what you wanted it to accomplish. I really do. No, and we do have parents who are on the flip side. So remember, we're here for all the kids. So you do have parents that will notify the nurses that, hey, I'm not comfortable with that 5. I'm going to keep them out the full 10, and then we set them up with live stream. So, we're doing the best we can.
Well, given all the data that we looked at and the resources that we're expending, I'd like to make a motion that we discontinue the contact tracing.
Second.
Is that a roll call, Trish?
I'll defer to Mike on that one.
Someone, just
Yeah.
for purpose of discussion, Troy, does that create any situation where some parent may be in a position where someone's exposed to illness because there was no contact tracing?
Well, I think the clarity here, I think the goal that you guys want to accomplish is stop excluding students from school if they're deemed a close contact here at school. Not the quote-unquote contact tracing, because like I said, we still have the responsibility to let that parent know that a child was sitting at that table. What they want to do with that information, that's their choice. So I think making a motion to do away with contact tracing is probably not the clear path. Like, if you want to stop excluding students, like requiring them to stay out. So if we call a parent and say, hey, your child is sitting across the lunch table, they don't have to stay home from school. But if you want to keep them home from school just to monitor whether they have symptoms, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think that's what you're looking to accomplish. Because we can't do away with contact tracing, because ultimately, if someone does want to stay home and receive live streaming, receive virtual instruction because they're deemed a close contact, we need to know that, right? So, and we've been limiting that live streaming to COVID-related issues only. So the principals, they've been doing an amazing job. The nurses, like, we still need to know that. So, at the end of the day, if you want to take the stance to say, okay, your child was deemed in close contact here at school, you can keep them home for the 5 days, 10 days, or not. That's your choice.
Yeah, I don't think I'm disagreeable to that. I mean, at some point, the contact tracing has to end. Do you agree? We're not going to contact trace COVID for now till infinity, I wouldn't think.
No, and I think you'll see that recommendation come down the line, but certainly looking at statewide data where it is now, I would never recommend that.
Right. So for clarification, it's to modify our current position on requiring quarantining due to contact tracing, as opposed to not requiring it, correct?
Oh, this is close contact.
Close contact.
Not the household close contact. You can look at the data. The household contact dominates the data that I sent you, as far as the percentages are very high, and the percentages of students getting it from their siblings is high.
Yeah, so just to clarify, we're not excluding anyone from partaking in the virtual option should they be in a quarantine situation.
Right.
Yeah,
COVID related only.
Right.
That's where we are, and we're still going to continue that. That's not going to change.
And it wouldn't change parents being notified that their child may have been exposed. So.
Correct. So the only change would be a required quarantine period from a school close contact. So we're all clear on that?
So if we have a healthy child that was in close contact by a school nurse calling us, we can keep that child home, we're still sending them to school without a test?
Correct. It would give the parent the option, right? So, all right.
That's not what the medical professionals are recommending, just to be clear.
Okay, thank you. You want to call it a roll, please, sir?
Bellis? Cunningham,
Yes.
Doherty,
Yes.
Fregoso,
No.
Key,
Yes.
Trace,
No.
Brand.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great. Anything else for new business? We have our second public comment portion. I'd like to make a motion to open to the public at 9 o'clock. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? We are open to the public if anyone would like to comment at this time. Mrs. Doyle?
I'd like to thank everyone for taking the time to read my letter, to do the interview.
I don't mean to interrupt. You just state your name and your address.
Michelle.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to thank everyone for your time. I hope I bring something positive forward. I come in the best of intentions, hope to fulfill any hole or gap that you need to fill. I look forward to hearing from you and being at the next meeting.
Thank you. Yeah, from our, I'm sorry. Is anyone else from the public like to be heard? If not, I make a motion to close to the public. I have a second. All in favor? Opposed, abstentions? From a procedural standpoint, Mr. Walton, I'm assuming the administration will be reaching out to Mrs. Doyle to get her squared away for and we'll have her seated at the February meeting.
Yep, Mrs. Bernie will be in touch and do the fingerprint process and all that.
Great.
Done for you. Then we'll have a little orientation for each one.
Is there any other questions or comments? If not, I make a motion, we adjourn at 9:01. Second? All in favor? Opposed?